The mysterious watches of the Sumerian gods. From the very beginning, ancient Sumer has held humanity in its grip, etched in stone, covered in dust, and whispering secrets across 6,000 years of silence. Yet among the countless artifacts unearthed from this cradle of civilization, one symbol has ignited more debate than any other: the strange wrist devices worn by Sumerian gods. Carved into tablets, reliefs, and palace walls, these circular objects, smooth, circular, and shockingly intricate, look uncannily like modern wristwatches. Complete with band-like straps, spokes, pedals, and even small protrusions resembling winding crowns, they stand out dramatically from the jewelry of the era. Some say these carvings are nothing more than ornate bracelets. Others are not convinced. Because this was Sumer, the civilization that invented writing, complex mathematics, early astronomy, and the 60-based time system we still use today. If any ancient people possessed knowledge of advanced timekeeping, or if they encountered something or someone who did, it would have been them. Across royal monuments and divine depictions, gods and elite figures appear wearing these circular devices with deliberate consistency. They aren't random, they aren't decorative, and they don't match any known Sumerian jewelry or ceremonial artifacts. So what were they? Some researchers believe the answer may lie in the Sumerians' own writings, records describing sky beings who descended from above, sharing knowledge of the heavens, the calendar, and the motion of stars. If taken literally, these carvings might represent real encounters with celestial visitors, each equipped with technology far ahead of its time. Others propose a more terrestrial mystery, that the Sumerians themselves created sophisticated instruments to track cosmic cycles, rituals, or agricultural seasons, devices now lost to history. But skeptics face a problem. The carvings are too uniform, too mechanical, too intentional. And the more you study them, the harder they are to dismiss. Whether symbolic, functional, or something stranger, these mysterious Sumerian watches remind us of one unsettling truth. History may not be as ancient as we think, and the past may not be as primitive. Deep inside the mist-choked jungles and jagged mountains of Vietnam, soldiers, villagers, and hill tribes whispered about a presence that didn't belong to the world of men. They called them the rock apes, massive, human-shaped creatures wrapped in thick reddish or dark hair, beings that moved with an uncanny mix of brute strength and silent intelligence. To some, they were spirits of the forest. To others, they were simply legends. But to the American soldiers who fought in the Vietnam War, they were terrifyingly real. Reports of these mysterious humanoids reached their peak during the war, when U.S. patrols constantly found themselves shadowed by broad-shouldered figures lurking just beyond the tree line. The creatures stood upright like men, yet moved with the effortless grace of predators built for the jungle. Their eyes, witnesses said, glowed with a cold, unsettling awareness, watching, calculating, waiting. One of the most famous encounters occurred in 1966 near the border of Laos. A squad of American soldiers reported repeated sightings of creatures that seemed too coordinated, too fearless, and too deliberate to be ordinary animals. They described beings nearly 6 feet tall, powerfully built, capable of leaping over boulders and tearing through undergrowth with startling ease. The presence of these creatures filled the jungle with a suffocating tension, as though the soldiers weren't the hunters. They were the ones being observed. Veterans later recalled nights filled with strange sounds, deep chest-rumbling grunts, rhythmic stone tapping, distant howls that didn't match any known animal. More unsettling were the moments when patrols felt eyes burning into their backs, only to see shadows flicker and vanish between the vines. But it wasn't just U.S. soldiers who encountered them. Vietnamese villagers, and especially the indigenous tribes, had been telling stories of these beings for centuries. They spoke of forest people who lived in hidden groups deep in the mountains, beings that communicated through low booming calls, avoided humans unless provoked, and possessed a mysterious intelligence that placed them somewhere between man and beast. The tribes didn't call them monsters. They called them neighbors, rare, powerful, and ancient. Physical evidence only deepened the mystery. Soldiers and researchers found large, human-like footprints, strands of hair that matched no known species, and crushed foliage paths too wide for any typical animal. Some prints showed arches and toe spreads disturbingly close to human anatomy. Others looked almost ape-like, yet too large, too symmetrical, too deliberate. Skeptics dismissed the sightings as wartime hallucinations, stress-induced misinterpretations, or misidentified primates. But veterans maintained their stories until the day they died. They insisted on what they saw. Creatures that walked like men, looked like apes, and watched them from the shadows with an intelligence no animal should possess. Even decades later, the legend refuses to fade. Modern explorers continued to search the remote highlands of Vietnam, convinced that the rock apes are more than myth. Perhaps a lost primate species, perhaps a remnant of an ancient line of hominids, or perhaps something stranger entirely. Whatever they were, one truth remains. The jungle of Vietnam remembers them, and so do the men who survived the encounters. For countless generations, the Native American tribes of the southeastern United States have preserved legends of strange beings that wandered the wetlands, forests, and shadow-filled swamps long before European settlers ever arrived. Among these tales, none have stirred more fascination or fear than the stories that seem to describe what modern witnesses call the skunk ape. These accounts, whispered around campfires and passed down orally through tribes like the Miccosukee and the Seminole, may represent some of the oldest testimonies of an elusive, towering creature said to roam the wild lands of Florida and Louisiana. Though modern researchers often exaggerate or misinterpret these legends, several tribal stories align with striking precision to today's reports of the creature. Many claim the Miccosukee people spoke of a swamp-dwelling being called the Shianonioi, translating it loosely to the creature of the wetlands. Over time, enthusiasts folded this name into skunk ape mythology, imagining an ancient tribal warning about a large humanoid creature lurking in Florida's marshes. But the truth is more complex and far stranger. In the Miccosukee language, Shianonioi actually meant snapping mouth, It referred not to a tall humanoid creature, but to hidden dangers like alligators and snapping turtles waiting beneath the murky water. The confusion likely came from the environment itself. The Mikusuki lived in a world dominated by swamps and reed-choked marshes where unseen dangers were everywhere. The misinterpretation stuck, and the legend of the Shianonioi slowly merged with the mythology of the skunk ape. But the Mikusuki never described a towering forest dweller. Their stories served as warnings. Respect the swamp, or risk being swallowed by it.
Did the biblical story of Noah come from the Sumerians and Babylonians? For decades, historians and theologians have debated a provocative question. Did the story of Noah's Ark truly originate in the Hebrew Bible, or was it inherited from far older Sumerian and Babylonian civilizations? One of the most recognizable tales in Judeo-Christian tradition, the biblical flood, describes a moment where humanity stands on the edge of annihilation, saved only by a righteous man chosen to build a massive ark under divine instruction. But many researchers now argue that the Noah narrative is not the first version of this story, only the most familiar one. Its roots may go back thousands of years earlier, deep into Sumer and Babylon, the cradle of civilization. In the modern era, discussions about Noah often center on difficult or exaggerated details. The dimensions of the ark, more than 450 feet long and 75 feet wide, seem impossible for an early civilization without enormous manpower. And the claim that a single family could gather and care for every species on Earth challenges both logic and logistics. Because of these issues, many scholars believe that the biblical story we know today is the end result of centuries of retelling, translation, and adaptation, with essential context lost and ancient traditions reshaped. Most historians agree that the biblical flood narrative is actually a fusion of two separate texts, the Jehovistic document and the priestly document. These texts were written centuries apart. The Jehovistic version likely originated in the early Hebrew monarchy, 8th to 9th century BC. The priestly version was written after 586 BC, during the Babylonian exile, a period when Hebrew scholars lived in Babylon, exposed daily to Babylonian myths and culture. Because of this, the priestly flood account carries strong Babylonian influences. Its legal tone, its covenant language, and even its use of the older term Elohim instead of God's later revealed name all reflect the environment in which it developed. Meanwhile, the Jehovistic narrative includes later additions, references to clean and unclean animals, categories that didn't formally exist until the time of Moses. This inconsistency alone hints that the older version was updated as it moved through generations. When the Jehovistic narrative is compared to ancient Mesopotamian texts, the parallels become impossible to ignore. The Babylonian flood story centers on a ruler named Xaisuthrus, or Ziusudra, who lived in the 10th generation of ancient Sumerian kings long before the earliest biblical writings. In this older account, Xaisuthrus receives a divine warning in a dream. A catastrophic halad will strike on the 15th day of the month of Deisus, roughly equivalent to May in the Macedonian calendar. He is instructed to preserve the wisdom and history of humanity, store it safely, and then construct an enormous ship far larger than Noah's, more than 1,000 meters long and 400 meters wide, a vessel built with the strength of an entire civilization. He is told to bring livestock, birds, and supplies capable of sustaining years of travel. This makes far more archaeological sense. Domesticated animals would be crucial for rebuilding agriculture after a flood, while wild animals could naturally repopulate the land. Xisuthris enters the ship with his family just before the waters arrive. The flood devastates the land, but the waters recede quickly. Like Noah, he releases birds to test the land. The first bird returns immediately. The second returns with muddy clay. The third does not return, a sign of dry ground. Upon leaving the ship, Xisuthris travels to a sacred mountain and offers sacrifice. According to the ancient text, he and his closest family members ascend into the realm of the gods and vanish from the earthly world. His companions search for him, discovering a divine message instructing them to retrieve the buried records in the city of Sippar, a real Sumerian solar worship center, and rebuild civilization. Through centuries, this story passed from Berosus to Alexander Polyhistor to Apollodius, and eventually to early Christian historians. The many original texts are lost, and Armenian translation preserves core details. The similarities between the Babylonian tale and the Jehovistic flood narrative are too extensive to ignore. A righteous man warned of a global deluge, divine instructions to build a massive vessel, preserving animals for survival, releasing birds to check for dry land, landing near a sacred mountain, preserving knowledge for future generations. Taken together, the evidence strongly suggests that the biblical story of Noah is a later retelling of ancient Sumerian and Babylonian flood traditions, shaped over time as it passed through the hands of scribes, storytellers, and exiled Hebrew scholars who lived in the shadow of Mesopotamia's myths.
Around 587 BC, during the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem, the Ark of the Covenant vanished from recorded history. From that moment onward, it transformed from a sacred artifact into one of humanity's greatest religious mysteries. For centuries, scholars, theologians, and explorers have searched for its final resting place. One of the most enduring theories points to Ethiopia, specifically the St. Mary of Zion Cathedral in Axum. According to Ethiopian tradition, the Ark was secretly transported there for protection and has remained hidden ever since, guarded by a single monk known only as the Guardian. He is the sole person permitted to see it. No scientist has ever been allowed to examine the object, leaving its existence dependent on faith, oral tradition, and scattered historical clues. Other theories suggest a different fate. The second book of Maccabees claims the prophet Jeremiah concealed the ark inside a cave on Mount Nebo, where it would remain hidden until a time chosen by God. According to some theologians, the ark will return with the Messiah and signal a new era of spiritual transformation. Apocalyptic scholars go further, claiming its reappearance will mark the beginning of the end times and the final judgment. A groundbreaking revelation emerged from the Giza Plateau, when researchers using advanced satellite imaging uncovered massive structures beneath the pyramid of Khafre. Led by Corrado Malanga, Armando May, Filippo Biondi, and Nicole Cicello, the team used synthetic aperture radar, SAR technology, capable of penetrating deep underground to construct high-resolution 3D scans. Their 2025 report described a vast subterranean network unlike anything previously documented. Beneath the pyramid, they detected 5 identical structures aligned near the base, geometric tunnels connecting them, 5 tiered internal levels with sloping roofs, 8 deep cylindrical shafts surrounded by spiral descents, and most astonishingly, 2 colossal cube-like chambers nearly 80 meters per side, buried 648 meters beneath the pyramid, and extending beneath all 3 pyramids at Giza. The geometric perfection of these formations challenged the idea that they are natural. Some believe they may be remnants of an advanced ancient engineering project. Others argue they could point to a forgotten civilization predating known Egyptian history. Their SAR analysis, enhanced by Doppler tomography, even translated radar signals into sound waves to detect microvibrations, confirming the density and structural reality of these buried formations. If real, the implications could rewrite our understanding of ancient Egypt forever. A viral photograph recently circulated across cryptozoology forums showing a bizarre skull allegedly found in southern Oklahoma. The skull features a high crest rising from the brow, an elongated lower jaw, a humanoid yet animalistic facial structure. Some believe it may belong to a Bigfoot-type creature or a dogman, especially since the region has long reported frightening night sounds, unidentifiable growls, and strange movements in the forests. Skeptics suggest it could be a deformed known species, but no confirmed species matches its proportions. Until experts can examine the skull directly, its true origin remains a mystery. UFO researcher John Rhodes spent years investigating rumors of underground tunnels beneath the Grand Canyon, rumors hinting at hidden bases or ancient networks. His investigation took a chilling turn when two mysterious men in black suits intercepted him before he reached his destination. One approached him by name, despite Rhodes never having met him. The man warned him, "Be careful out here. People can fall into these caverns, and no one would ever find you." It was a threat disguised as advice. This event mirrors countless men in black encounters reported by UFO investigators, unknown entities who mysteriously know personal details and warn researchers away from restricted areas. To this day, Rhodes believes he was being watched long before he arrived, suggesting a powerful force is protecting whatever lies beneath the canyon. In 1895, photographer Orrin Jeff investigated a forbidden section of the Grand Caverns in Virginia. During a long exposure shot, he heard whispers and shifting movement in the darkness. When he triggered his flash, he briefly illuminated 3 humanoid figures, then skeletal with elongated limbs, standing only yards away. The developed photograph showed the figures staring directly at the camera. While critics dismissed it as a trick of light, the photo circulated for decades, fueling theories about hidden subterranean species, lost underground civilizations, or alien outposts concealed in cave systems. Only blurry reproductions remain today. The original photo vanished. In Devon, UK, hiker Ben Landraham discovered a straight corridor of hundreds of flattened trees, as if something massive had torn through the forest. The trees weren't uprooted. They were pressed flat in one uniform direction. Locals later reported strange lights and sounds the night before, sparking theories of a UFO crash. Some visitors claim there were magnetic anomalies at the site, though no official explanation has been provided. On August 21, 1955, in Evansville, Indiana, Mrs. Johnson was swimming in the Ohio River when a hairy, clawed hand seized her underwater. She escaped but suffered severe injuries and developed a strange green palm-shaped mark on her leg that couldn't be washed off for days. The creature was never identified. Dead Means Curve in Ohio has been notorious for fatal crashes. After a deadly 1969 accident that killed 5 teenagers, the lone survivor, Rick, reported seeing a faceless hitchhiker at the crash site. He encountered the faceless figure 5 times over the following years. Some believe it is the restless spirit of one of the victims. Others think it is a manifestation of the road's tragic history. In Texas, extreme fires forced the evacuation of the United States' primary nuclear weapons facility, Pantex. Social media images showed strange burn patterns and ground markings that some claimed resembled directed energy impacts. While officials blame winds and dry vegetation, the out-of-season timing sparked debate. The Smokehouse Creek fire grew to 850,000 acres, larger than Rhode Island, and became one of the largest wildfires in state history. On July 17, 2010, 19-year-old Iwona Wiedzecka left a nightclub in Sopot, Poland, after an argument and began the long walk home barefoot. CCTV captured her final movements and a mysterious man walking behind her. She vanished and was never found. Despite massive national attention, interviews, and 12,000 pages of public investigations online, no breakthrough has ever come. Scientists recently discovered all 5 DNA nucleobases, adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, and uracil, inside meteorites.
This strengthens the theory that life's building blocks may have arrived on Earth through cosmic impacts. Advanced techniques, when 100 times more sensitive than previous methods, revealed pyrimidenes for the first time, suggesting meteorites may have delivered the ingredients for genetic life before Earth even formed oceans. A crash witnessed in 1947 at Lake Jossing in Norway remains unsolved. A modern research team using advanced sonar has now discovered a 46-foot-long underwater anomaly, yet divers have not located any physical debris. This investigation is considered one of Norway's largest UFO research efforts. On May 20, 1967, Stefan Michalek encountered a landed craft in Manitoba, Canada. The craft emitted heat, a sulfur smell, and a burst of hot air that burned his chest in a perfect grid pattern. He suffered months of illness and recurring symptoms. Investigators later found a scorched landing site, dead vegetation, radiation traces, and melted clothing. It remains one of the most credible UFO encounters ever recorded. Strange three-fingered, small-bodied mummies found near Peru's Nazca Lines have been dismissed for years. But new findings, including intact nail bites, unusual bone structures, and metallic implants, have led some scientists to reconsider their authenticity. Whether they represent an unknown culture, a genetic variant, or something far stranger, remains under investigation.